Hello and welcome back to the Formula 1 chat. Today we're here to review the Canadian Grand Prix, the 8th round of the Formula 1 season in 2023. It's been a season which hasn't provided much excitement, but I would say this Canadian Grand Prix was quite exciting.
It was alright. I mean, compared to the last two Grand Prix we've had, it wasn't the greatest, but it still wasn't bad.
I don't know, I think it was on a par with both of Monaco and Spain. Monaco was only crazy because it was wet. I think if today was wet, we may have been in for a completely chaotic race.
I think we had a really nice midfield fight today.
We did. We had a really good midfield fight. The rest of it was not as great. I mean, Max basically waltzed it, didn't he? But other than that, everyone else was sort of close. So that was good to see. We saw Alexander Albon be really, really impressive. But we'll start, as we always do, from the bottom up. So we'll start with reverse constructors orders. Williams at the bottom. Not after this weekend, but we haven't had the updated championships yet.
One half of the garage will be absolutely buzzing. The other half are going to be absolutely a little fuming.
Should we start with Sargent? To be fair to Logan Sargent, obviously there's not a lot he can do in this situation.
No, the car failed on him.
But also, his car is significantly slower than Albon. Albon's car has more upgrades.
Yeah.
Albon's car brought like 7 new upgrades, pretty much a whole new car, whole different car to Sargent. So, in fairness to him, I don't really know how anyone expected him to be close to Albon's pace.
P18 in quali?
Yeah, Sargent was P19 in qualifying. Obviously, Albon progressed to Q3 and Q2. He managed to top the session because he went out early, went out quickly on those softs and put in the best lap. In Q3, couldn't set a lap time.
But he wasn't too bothered. He's starting P9. And I see all the impediment penalties that we'll probably touch on throughout the review meant Sargent did eventually start P18. Albon's still starting P9.
Yeah, so Albon had a platform to build from. Sargent had to do a bit of work. Sargent obviously early in the race out due to a mechanical failure. That was disappointing because he definitely could have done something today, even if it wasn't to score points.
Nothing he could have done about it.
Obviously.
Car failed.
He's not going to help out and fix it.
Kind of out of his weekend, obviously couldn't do much from there.
Bit of a shame for him.
Alex Albon.
What a drive.
Wow.
I thought when he was going deep on those hards, I thought he just hadn't pitted. I presumed he started on the hards, and then I looked and he had pitted. I was like, lost as to how that happened.
What lap did the safety car come out? 15?
Quite decently early into the race, I would say. Yeah, lap 15 sounds about right.
So he did around 50 laps on those hards. Because he pitted onto the hards in the safety car and he held on. P7, 6 points, huge result for him.
We saw him do it at Australia last year. It's just what he does, seemingly.
Absolutely huge. Difference is though, this wasn't a 10th. This was P7. That is massive from Alex Albon.
Yeah, huge 6 points for a Williams team that have only scored 1 up to this point. He is showing why he's showing his quality, especially against a teammate who is new to Formula 1 and nowhere near his pace. So he's doing really, really well so far, Alex Albon. He's doing exactly what he has to do, getting points in a car which really shouldn't be up there. Do the new upgrades potentially boost Williams much higher, though? Because their pace looks really good.
Even if they're not, maybe the pace doesn't merit P7, but if Albon can drag it up and if he can defend for his life like he did today, then they can get big results like we've seen.
Yeah.
So it looks very positive for Williams. All in all, very strong weekend for the team.
Indeed. AlphaTauri had a contrastingly bad weekend.
What happened?
They didn't really score. They didn't really do anything, and that resulted in them dropping down the championship order.
I mean,
in qualifying, Nick De Vries P18, Tsunoda P16, both dumped out of the first session.
Tsunoda was penalised for impediments. They started 18-19. No, they started 17-19.
Yeah, but Nick De Vries then recovering. He went up to 18. Tsunoda got to 14.
He had an awful race. We'll start with Nick De Vries. Shocking race. Him and a K-Mag, they must hate each other.
I don't know what they're doing. Like, Nick sort of tried to run K-Mag off and then realised it wasn't going to happen. So they both went wide. Russell snuck down the inside. Then they went to the next corner and Nick De Vries just completely cocked it, locked up, and it was a mess.
And then they both spent about a minute and a half reversing.
Just complete, mental.
K-Mag reversed onto the track and De Vries reversed halfway, got bored and cut across the grass.
Yeah, but to be fair, that kept him out of the way of other drivers more than K-Mag. K-Mag had a bit of a gap. Nick had drivers coming into the racing lines.
It was just bizarre. Terrible weekend. Finished a lap down, miles off anyone.
But also the fact that Tsunoda started below him?
Yeah.
And ended up 4 places ahead and about
a minute and a half.
Yeah, quite the gap ahead of him. It's not great once again for Nick de Vries, but ultimately not a lot either could have done with the package they had this weekend. The AlphaTauri is clearly not very quick, so I don't really blame Nick all that much. I think the car just wasn't there for them to do anything.
He did make a lot of errors though.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame anything but himself for the incidents with K-Mag. Yeah. And Tsunoda, again, what can he do really with that absolute dog of a AlphaTauri?
Yeah.
Up next then, I believe it is the Alfa Romeo team. Haas, sorry. The Haas team. Looked so promising in quali, didn't it?
If it had rained on Sunday...
Yeah, it has just... the championships was just updated, so it is Haas next.
Yeah, if it had rained on Sunday, what a weekend this could have been for Haas. But the rain didn't come, it was a fully dry race, and that just ruined their weekend. Because Hulkenberg, take a bow. P2 on the timing sheet, obviously with the penalty for speeding under a red flag, was knocked down to P5. Still a monumental qualifying lap from him, but the rain did massively help, and in the dry, the pace of that Haas, you can really see that it is non-existent.
Yeah, do you think if it had been wet today that Hulkenberg could have scored top 5 finish?
Maybe,
definitely points at least.
And he got quite a safety car as well. It was just a horrific weekend.
Yeah.
And K-Mag, he got caught up with De Vries,
didn't he? And other than that, I didn't really see him.
Torrid, brilliant Saturday, torrid Sunday.
Yeah, quality wasn't good enough though from K-Mag to be that far off your teammate. Yeah. Down in P14, not really an excuse for that. In the race, 15-17, both a lap off of the leader. It's just not. They clearly haven't got a car that can compete. In the wet, they were able to do something, but in the race they couldn't really lay a glove on any of their opponents. No. Alfa Romeo then, who had a really decent weekend actually. Qualifying didn't go well, 20th and 15th.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously Zhou started Q1 by his car stopping and
then starting again, and it was a mess.
After that, I didn't see him the whole weekend. I didn't see him once in the race. I don't think the cameras panned to him single once.
I don't think there was a much point to pan to him. And then Valtteri Bottas, P15.
Right, I mean...
I don't know how he ended up where he did, but fair enough. It was a really poor qualifying, recovered well. P10 for Bottas, a point for the Alfa Romeo team.
Right in the midst of that midfield fight.
Climbs above Haas, which could be crucial come the end of the season. Yes. Shogun Yu down in P16 in a little Haas sandwich. Well, probably not really a sandwich, Max was well off.
Absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, I don't really remember seeing him this weekend. The thing is, his performance looks bad compared to his teammate, but given his struggles, obviously, with the car in qualifying, and then, obviously, the grid position, it would have been difficult for him to really be close to his teammate, but when your teammate's scoring points, and you are quite off of him...
Bottas maximised what he could get from this weekend.
But he's not really done that this season, so...
No.
It's the first time
the first time I've seen it. But positive signs with Bottas, question marks over Zhou this weekend.
Yeah. McLaren, a weekend which promised so much, delivered so little. In qualifying, they looked rapid. P7 for Lando Norris, P9 for Oscar Piastri.
Brilliant. What could you want?
They look like they're slowly bringing that pace back to be a midfield team, to be a top of the midfield side, like Alpine, of course, in that sort of bracket where they can compete when Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, teams like that are having an off day. And then in the race... It sort of all went wrong for them. Ferraris and Perez both jumped them by the pit stops from the safety car.
Yeah, that's the thing. First stint, 9-10, absolutely fine. Then the whole safety car happened. They got jumped by the others because they didn't pit.
And then they opened up a gap. Because those drivers were fighting, because the McLarens were fighting Albon and Bottas, they opened up a gap. Then they were able to pit and see be ahead of them. And then that dropped her into the fight.
And also the safety car came out because they were supposed to go together. Lando backed off. That ended up giving him a 5-second time penalty, which knocked him from P8 to absolute nothing.
P10, no?
P9.
Okay.
He's battling Ocon, yeah.
And
it's dropped him down to 13th.
Yeah, so he ended up outside the points, and Piastri wasn't in a position to take advantage of that and claim any points for McLaren. So a weekend where they definitely could have scored a double points finish.
From a 7-9 in quali to an 11-13 in the race. Not great.
They were the big losers that helped people like Alexander Albon and Valtteri Bottas to climb back into those points. But McLaren overall weren't good enough in the race trim. But the car looks good, and I think that throughout the season they probably can start to pick up points more regularly.
had a really good race. He was brilliant. He made some brilliant moves.
Yeah.
He was pushing it to the max. Looked really, really good. Without the penalty, he gets P9. That's 2 points. We look at it as a brilliant weekend.
Yes. Alpine, I think they had some really good pace this weekend, and they were just cocked up.
Yeah,
they were just cocked by other drivers.
What an up and down weekend.
So we look at qualifying then. Pierre Gasly, P17, blocked by Carlos Sainz, who I will say was not penalised harshly enough. Because he
killed him.
Well, not only for that individual incident, but he had 3 separate instances of blocking. He only picked up 3 places.
And I think sometimes you have to be in fairness. It's kind of a bit about because how the team either don't tell him or let him do that.
I'm convinced he hasn't got an engineer. Neither of them.
Yeah,
because they never get told there's a car behind them.
How on earth do you not go on the radio?
The strategy's
and
a
go,
mess.
Hi Sainz, you've got a car currently behind you at 300 kilometres an hour.
Yeah.
Also, why on earth do you keep parking at the final corner at Apex? Why don't tell him that?
I don't really know what he was trying to do there, but a mess for Carlos Sainz. He blocked Pierre Gasly. Gasly ultimately was completely cocked by it because he couldn't get his lap in, and that was a big shame. And he was P17. Ocon, on the other hand, P6.
What a weekend for us, Ben Ocon.
Yeah, he looked really good. He picked up that was a good position, but you felt like that maybe there was a bit more from the car.
Yeah, P6 only behind a Haas, a Red Bull, Aston Martin, and both Mercs. Not too bad. In the race, how this man did not overtake Alex Albon, I will never know.
But it's difficult to follow, isn't it, in these current
and I see in a straight line, that
1.
Williams is quick.
That's the thing. Williams just have straight line speed. They've got some upgrades. Potentially they're not as bad as we think. I think they could easily be now that, or at least Albon's car is at around 7th, 8th in the field. Because I'd definitely say that Haas is worse. I would definitely say that the AlphaTauri is worse. I'd definitely say the Alfa Romeo is worse.
Yeah.
So maybe then you're looking at 7th, 5th in the field.
I don't know, Ocon, he spent 3 quarters of the race behind Albon. His rear wing was jiggling around all over the place.
Yeah,
don't know how that seemed safe.
But I think that's just a feature of the Albon. Adds pace.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think points, he'll take the points. 4 points, not a bad weekend.
No, not too bad at all. I think
Gasly
some solid points to the Alpine, especially with McLaren not scoring.
Yeah.
Fine. Pierre Gasly, P12 in the end. He recovered really well, to be fair to him, considering how far he was behind those McLarens to be in a McLaren sandwich at the end. Really strong pace from him. I think Alpine have showed they're very much the 5th quickest team.
Yeah.
So they should be regularly scoring points now, especially given that the top sides are so inconsistent at the moment. So I think we will start to see Alpine score a few more points a bit more regularly. I think they look really good this weekend.
Yeah.
Up next, it is Ferrari. Ferrari are a clown show. P11 for Charles Leclerc. They didn't time it right with the intermediates. He said he wanted slick tyres. They said it's still too wet. Everyone else went on slick tyres, set fast laps. He then came on to slick tyres when it went wet again. So that was bizarre. Sainz managed to get through, but because he spent the whole of qualifying sitting at the final corner waiting to ruin people's laps, just lurking there, he picked up a 3-place grid penalty.
How he picked up 3 places, I do not know.
This promoted Charles Leclerc to P10, Sainz down to P11. So a horrible start to the weekend for them. They would have to start 10-11 on the grid.
But I think they maximised their recovery.
Yeah, probably. They ended up securing a 4-5.
They weren't attached to the top 3.
Not a bad run at all. They said ahead of Checo Perez, who looks like he's well off. Obviously, he pitted at the end for softs, which picked up the fastest lap point. But yeah, Ferrari, they're just clearly well off the pace of Mercedes and Aston.
The inconsistency is awful.
Yeah, and then it doesn't help then that they keep having bad qualifying sessions. They keep having weird strategies. They keep getting penalties for impediment.
Yeah. It feels like every race for them is a recovery job.
Yeah, because it is at the moment. One of them's always having a bad qualifying session, or like Leclerc now has had 2 very bad qualifying sessions consecutively. Sorry, 3 very bad consecutive qualifying sessions. He was penalised in Monaco for impeding Lando. He was shit in Spain with no justification, and here he was off the pace and then got cocked by his team for not knowing what conditions
again around Ferrari. Everyone questions Ferrari every year.
I don't know how they're so incompetent.
I honestly don't know.
It's fascinating, truly fascinating, because on paper it should work. They've got a great setup there.
But I mean, they're starting to slip away now from the top 3 teams.
Yeah, I mean, they actually gained on Mercedes this weekend, of course, but a lot of that is due to George Russell's inability to not crash into walls. They also gained on on Aston Martin, but that's mainly thanks to Fernando Alonso's teammate Lance not being able to do anything.
Yeah, they gained.
Strolls.
They gained 1, 2.
On what?
They gained 2 on Aston.
Yeah. That's still a gain.
Yeah,
they've not gained in many other events this season, and obviously Verstappen gained on them. But
should we touch on George Russell's incompetence?
I think we should. It was a bit of a weird one, wasn't it? Because he came off the curb and he was aimed towards the wall, but you feel like if he just slammed on the brakes, he probably wouldn't have slapped into it. He tries to floor the throttle, slaps into the wall, then it slaps through into the wall. Then he sort of just veers again, slaps his front into the wall, and then again rear goes into the wall again. Ruins his tyre. He damages the front wing as well. That has to be replaced. Tyre has to be changed.
Brings that safety car.
Safety car brings out because of all the debris, and then he pits, goes to last, drives back through to 8th, and then they have to retire the car. So such a mix of emotions throughout that for Russell. But ultimately, it was a big mistake. I don't think that can be underplayed, how silly that mistake was.
Does he get on the podium with Hamilton?
Because he didn't really need to push.
No.
He could have easily got... Well, he was fourth.
He was on the pace with him. He was only like 1 or 2 seconds behind.
So I don't know why he was pushing as hard as he was. He made a mistake, getting all over the curbs. He couldn't save it like Max did when he was bounced over the curbs and just laughed at it. But yeah, Russell... I don't know. Just a bit of a poor weekend for someone who doesn't really show much inconsistency. But qualifying was really good. Qualified P5. Not too bad. It was only 2 cents off his teammate. And overall his pace in the race looked really decent until he crashed into the wall. Lewis Hamilton then.
Great weekend.
Yeah, 4th in qualifying. Pretty decent. Should have probably been quicker than like Hulkenberg and Alonso maybe. But
Hulkenberg's massive.
Hulkenberg is massive in the wet. But yeah, Hamilton, I don't know. Don't really know how to describe. His quality was fine, and then in the race, I don't know. I think he did as much as he could have. He could have possibly got ahead of Alonso, but Alonso had a quicker car.
That last stint was really strong from Lewis.
He looked really quick, yeah.
And he really pushed Alonso. Obviously, Alonso, we'll touch on it, but he was managing that issue, which probably allowed Hamilton to close the gap to a smaller margin than it probably should have been.
Yeah.
But still, mega last stint from Hamilton, showing that Merc do have a little bit of pace.
Yeah, of course, Merc losing out to Aston Martin this weekend, but only by 5 points. The biggest problem for Aston right now is they can't compete with one driver. And Lance Stroll is not offering what Aston Martin need. And we spoke about this the other week, how actually Aston Martin's limiting factor right now is their second driver. And if Lawrence Stroll cares about the team more than his family, then he will bin him off.
He will.
At the end of the day, it's a business. You can't have your son in there when he's so far off his teammate. In qualifying, Lance Stroll was P13. In qualifying, Fernando Alonso was P3. That is such a disparity. Very similar to disparity to that between Verstappen and Perez. In fact, Verstappen and Perez's gap was bigger.
How you getting knocked out in Q2 in that Aston Martin?
Yeah, I know. It's such a strong car, and he just cannot find the pace.
No, he can't.
Really can't find the pace. In the race, it was slightly better for Stroll. He was able to bring home a P9 finish, but Fernando Alonso bringing P2 really does shit all over that achievement. But I really thought after Spain, Stroll might push on because he had a decent Spanish Grand Prix, you know. In fact, he out-qualified his teammate, so not bad at all. This weekend, well off the pace. Alonso showed his quality once more. Aston, I think the only reason Aston won't finish second in the championship this season is because of Lance Stroll.
Alonso pushed Max the most he had all season.
Yeah.
Only an 8-second gap.
9.5 seconds in there, very close.
Yeah. I mean, that does sound quite far. But for most of the race, especially the opening laps, the first stint, and obviously the safety car helped. But around, keeping it out of double digits is pretty impressive. And it shows how the Aston upgrades have closed the gap a little bit.
But without the VSC and without the safety car, is it another 15-second race?
Maybe. But I was looking at it and go, if Hamilton didn't get Alonso off the line and it was Alonso behind Verstappen at the safety car restart,
maybe they kept it closer.
Who knows?
Yeah. Potentially so. But yeah, Red Bull then. We'll leave Verstappen for a moment. We'll talk about Sergio Perez because once again, Sergio Perez showing his inconsistency, showing that he doesn't have what it takes to be in a top team. But ultimately, is it a bad thing for Red Bull? Because
Yes and no.
Yeah. That obviously
yes, no, because obviously it means he's not challenging Max too hard. But yes, because he's in 12th.
But I don't think that's a problem right now. My only concern with Checo Perez is that if there was a serious title fight, he wouldn't be in a position to help Max. No. So does he hinder Red Bull in that regard? But on the flip side, in this dominant era where they don't really want anyone to challenge Max, they just want Max to fly off and whoever else is in the car to finish second if they can. Is it better to have a driver that isn't always up there?
Yeah,
that Max can pick up the points, it's fine. But I would have serious concerns, and I would be surprised if he renews the contract.
It's another weekend from Paris.
I think he'll survive this season, next season, but I would be surprised if he renews.
European leg's massive for Paris because he's in a really bad run of form.
He needs to just pick up a good quality.
Yeah.
So, just a decent qualifying session where he's not outside the top 10 would be good for him. Just a dry quality where he can get P2 and then a nice calm race. But yeah, P6 in the race, a decent recovery, couldn't jump high for the Ferraris, which is, I would argue, poor. They're in a much lower car. You had the tyre disadvantage in the first stint, but given how close he was, surely he'd have used the tyre advantage in the second stint to catch up.
And he was gaining time, and he just lost time.
Well, yeah, he ended up 30 seconds off, but if you take away the 22, you say, for a pit stop, that becomes 8 seconds. It's quite decently close, but he should be closer. He's in a Red Bull. He's in a Red Bull. He should be on his tail, if not getting past Carlos Sainz. But not a brilliant weekend for Perez. The opposite is true for Max Verstappen.
The story this weekend for all teams was one driver had a great weekend, the other one had a terrible weekend. Apart from Ferrari, both had a terrible weekend.
Both had a terrible and then recovered quite well. But Max, pole, led every lap, win, was just a fast lap for claiming consecutive Grand Slam victories. It's just complete dominance right now, and there's no other word to describe it. No drivers really laying a glove on him, even when they do seem to have the pace, as Aston did this weekend. Maybe if Alonso was ahead, could he have challenged him off the safety car restart? If he hadn't had such a poor start, would he have been closer to Max throughout the race? It's impossible to say, but overall, Max is just so far clear of everyone else.
He's faultless again.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Even when he's bouncing over curves and stuff, he's recovering it so easily, barely breaking a sweat.
Yeah.
It all feels too easy for him right now, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, he's just tearing it apart.
And I don't really know where that changes, when that stops, because in most dominant periods for teams, there's two drivers that are up there consistently. But I do think there's a genuine possibility Max Verstappen wins the next 5 Grand Prix, and therefore levels Sebastian Vettel's record of 9 consecutive wins. I don't see that as in previous seasons. You look at that and go, "That's mental," but he's not. The only reason Max hasn't won every race this season is because of extraneous circumstances.
Look at the next.
In Azerbaijan, he qualified outside the top 10 because of an incident qualifying. He finished P2 and was so close to Checo.
Next.
In Saudi Arabia, he was outside the top 10. Checo was on pole. He should have minced it. Verstappen was right there, just behind.
Yeah. It's the next 5 races.
Yes, of course, we head to Austria in 2 weeks' time.
Red Bull win.
Then Britain, where Verstappen's usually quick. Then 2 weeks until Hungary, where we then go for then Belgium the week after that. Then we head to the summer break and come back for Zandvoort.
Well, Belgium, Netherlands and Austria should be bang on Verstappen wins.
Brett is usually good at Hungary. If you watched his race last season, he won.
If he has a full car, then he'll
and spun.
Yeah.
And still won. So he was really good there. And then it's Monza after that, where these straight lines being the DRS advantage of the Red Bull should ease any concerns they have. You'd imagine, though, they would have to take, if they do have any concerns with penalties, they would have to take those engine penalties in either Belgium or Italy.
I don't think it matters if they take them.
I think that Max would want to leave them to Italy. Yeah. Because if he takes penalties, there's a chance he doesn't cut through and catch Checo.
Yeah.
And then he would hurt that streak, but obviously at Monza he would already have matched Vettel, or the run would be over.
So L's and W's the weekend.
Yeah, Team L will start with.
This is a tough one, but I think I'm gonna go for Haas.
Oh, they were the ones I was gonna go for. I'm gonna go McLaren. I don't think you could have a. I don't think you could have 2 cars in the top 10 in qualifying and not score a point.
As a whole, though.
But then scored a P2, so your justification is
AlphaTauri's have a shout because genuinely awful.
Yeah, but they could be team out every weekend because they're crap. Their cars are just crap.
Well, no, this was even worse because De Vries was just fanning around.
Yeah, we could be the driver.
He reversed quicker than he went forwards.
But yeah, I'll give Team Alpha to McLaren. I think they had showed so much promise and delivered nothing. Driver L of the weekend? Russell. Yeah, makes complete sense. I would say.
Away a guaranteed P4, if not a podium.
Yeah, I sort of want to go Hulkenberg, but I feel it's a bit harsh. The Haas didn't help him. I would go Russell as well. He crashed. Ultimately, cost the team arguably 12 points.
If not, I'd say De Vries or Perez.
Oh yeah, both had really tough weekends. You could argue Sainz as well for becoming a human chicane. A mobile chicane, just the final corner. He added a second chicane.
Absolute tool.
You had to weave that and then the Wall of Champions chicane. But yeah, Team W.
Ooh. This is a tough one actually, because as I said, it was very good. Each team had one really good drive.
I can't say Ferrari when they were that bad in quality, but they did score a 4-5.
Yeah, for me, either Aston or Ferrari, just because they're the only two teams that score a double points finish.
I'm going to go Williams. Because I think they secured a brilliant result with Albon. And
I didn't want to give mine to Williams, because then my driver W has to be Alex Albon.
Yeah.
If we want to stop giving it to Max
Verstappen. I was going to say, it is Max, but
that's boring.
Not for this weekend.
Yeah.
Alex Albon massively outperformed the Williams.
7.
What a ridiculous result.
Yeah.
I think that could be crucial come the end of the season for them not being last in the championship. And if we look now at the championship, then Williams up to 9th now, 5 points ahead of AlphaTauri.
Huge.
Alfa Romeo also jump Haas. McLaren, I think they've got to be looking over their shoulder rather than looking forward to Alpine, because again they lost points to the teams below them and didn't gain on Alpine. They lost out to Alpine. And then Mercedes, the gap has closed. Aston Martin closed that gap a little bit. Yeah. Obviously Red Bull extended that gap. They are now at 321 points. Mercedes on 167.
Crazy.
So almost double. I think if they were to claim another win next time out and Perez scores a decent amount of points, they could be at double Mercedes tally.
That is mental.
Looking at the drivers' standings, Max Verstappen now has a 69 point advantage. 69 point advantage, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's pretty decent.
That's 3 race wins.
Believe that it was said on the broadcast, F1 broadcast, that it would be the biggest gap between champions ever. Yeah. Between drivers ever surmounted to champions. So if Perez was to close it up, it'd be the biggest gap closed up. So yeah, it's going to take quite some doing for anyone to catch Max Verstappen. The nearest non-rebel driver is on 117. That's a further 9 points off than Checo is. So that would be 78.
9 points behind Checo though.
Yeah, and then Hamilton's only 15 points behind Alonso. So they're quite close, actually, Perez.
Second could be an interesting fight like it was last year between Leclerc and Perez.
Yeah, I did see... Tomo did a great video, actually, on if Verstappen wasn't there, what the championship would look like, and Checo was still winning. Checo would be winning the championship, but not by a convincing margin.
No.
So it would be very tight. But...
Yeah.
He is P2. That is the minimum expected. Not too bad at all.
No.
But yeah... I think that's all for today. It was a decent race, not horrendous. Hopefully Austria is more exciting. I think Austria should be. Do we have a sprint in Austria?
Yes, we do.
I want to say we do. We do indeed. Sprint shootout. That should be exciting. A Friday qualifying session. I'm personally very buzzing for it.
Yes.
Hope you guys are at home as well. We'll be back in 2 weeks with that. Of course, we'll have a video out on Friday. I don't know the topic yet. You're going to have to wait and see. But yeah, if you've enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Keep the conversation going in the comments down below. Give us your thoughts on this race and how good Alex Albon was. This is all from us today, though. Thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.